Steve, I thought was, oh, okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. I think Steve was planning to get on. We also have like an NAR council meeting that's kind of overlapping with this. So we're splitting duties, I think. But, generally speaking, I'm here to answer any questions or anything like that. But we do offer a statewide professional standards process, very similar to what you guys have at the local level. I mean, it all runs off of NAR's Code of Ethics and Arbitration Manual. We have a grievance committee, ombudsman, mediation, arbitration, professional standards, citation committee. We have all those at the state level. All those committees are made up of members from across the state. So, I mean, even the people or even the boards that have their own process, for instance, like you guys, Southern Gateway, St. Charles, Kansas City, St. Louis, their members are out also on our committees as well. So even if they serve at a local level, sometimes they decide to serve at a state level. And so we handle the rest of the state local associations, absent the ones I just mentioned. And we, don't have the hearings in Columbia. I know it's one of the questions we usually get is, does everybody have to come to Columbia? Then no, we go to where the cases are filed. So we do the traveling. It's usually myself or Steve, and then we pick a panel from somewhere. We poll essentially around the state and say, hey, anybody want to go to this? And we just kind of cycle through the list. So everybody kind of gets a chance to at least serve on a panel or gets the opportunity to be asked to serve on a panel and see if it hits their schedule. Because once again, I know that's one of the things that local boards ask when they come onto our process is, they don't want to lose the ability to be involved. And honestly, I think, I heard some conversation here before I actually started talking, and there were some questions about how many do we actually have, or do we have that many cases, and that sort of thing. And so maybe your professional standards members aren't seeing the action, so to speak, and they want to. And so I think at a state level you get more of a chance to do that. On top of that, if you guys aren't getting a lot of cases, it's one of those things, like from your AE's perspective anyway, it's a core standards issue. You guys have to file all this stuff with NAR. Whereas if you hop onto our professional standards program, we just you just check a box and says like the state handled it. So it saves a lot of paperwork and stuff on her end, and a lot of committee selection time and things of that nature as well. So it is a time saver there. I don't know. That's kind of a broad overview, but I'm happy to field any questions specifically about the program or process or anything like that.
Hello?
Yeah.
When everybody's talking more.
Right.
You want to cover the cost of it for us?
So I believe Amanda has that agreement, and I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but it was like $13 a member or something like that.
Yep, that's what I have.
And then Amanda, do you want to just briefly tell us the benefits that you talked about at the last board meeting?
I mean, the biggest thing that I can take away from it is that none of us are lawyers. So if we do have a grievance or something that needs to go to professional standards, we're handling it in-house. I keep thinking about the fact that $13 a year is more of an insurance policy versus if something does come to the board, it's going to cost us a lot more than $13 a member to hire our own legal counsel to handle anything if it gets to that point.
Amanda, I would like, Steve said he's in the waiting room, by the way.
Oh,
I don't know if you can see that or not, but to her point too, she's right. So we actually have 3 professional standards administrators at the state level. There's myself, Steve Graham, and Kim Moriarty. And so if you're familiar with the NAR process at all, you have to be a professional standards administrator to, do anything with the process. And then also on top of the administrator being at the hearings or running through the process, you also have to run everything by legal counsel as well, because not only are there the NAR Code of Ethics and Arbitration Manual implications, there are legal implications to every ethics complaint that's filed, every hearing that's held, every decision that's had, violation, that sort of thing. and especially with arbitrations as well. So the monetary dispute stuff. And so, like I said, we have 3 of us that are professional standards administrators, and it just so happens that 2 of us are also attorneys. So myself and Steve, and that, is a big time and money saver for everybody involved in the process, because we don't have to have 2 individual people show up to every hearing. We're not paying an attorney to show up to a hearing, and we're not paying a professional standards administrator, which in most cases at the local board level, it's your AE. I'm assuming, Amanda, you have that administration, or somebody does, because somebody
Yeah.
has to be the administrator. So you're having your AE takes time out of her day to sit in the hearing, go through all the grievance, go through citation stuff, ombudsman stuff, arbitration stuff, any of the stuff that goes along with professional standards. And then on top of that, you've got to hire your legal counsel and hope that your legal counsel is, sufficiently versed enough in the professional standards process, which really, I can say I've been here for 6 years now. It's a very niche process. Before I got hired here, I had no idea what it was. I was a practicing attorney. I did a lot of stuff. I did real estate stuff, but I had no idea what professional standards process was. So you've got to make sure you have an attorney that can do that sort of thing and sufficiently versed. And there's a few of them around the state. And that's kind of the problem. Is I know, like, we've actually taken on a single case basis things from other local boards where their professional standards attorney, for instance, has had a conflict because they're representing one of the parties to the ethics complaint. And so they can't actually represent the board. So we end up taking them on a one-time thing. Whereas if everybody's on the state process, or the boards that are on the state process, they don't have to worry about that, because Steve and I aren't taking on any clients that are going to be potential ethics complaint parties. So that is another benefit. Like Amanda said, it's kind of an insurance thing as well.
That's a good point, that you are attorneys just handling this. And then I also have to leave, but I had 3 thoughts. One is it would free up people on the grievance committee and to be on other committees. And then 2, maybe the minor grievances that we might have locally, maybe local agents would feel more at ease filing a complaint, knowing that it just sort of, could go through the state's system. And then 3rd, aren't we just preaching to the choir? Aren't the people that are on this phone call the people that were at the board meeting? Amanda?
Yes, the people that are on this call were at the board meeting. The point of this call was to have Robert kind of go through anything else, any
Oh, I see.
questions that we might have, so that
Okay.
we can relay the message to the rest of the members.
Okay, because I knew that was my only concern, was trying to explain to the members what the board is going to recommend.
Right.
And the members really need to somehow hear about this.
Well, I like your comment too about, the local level type stuff. Hey, I got to work with these people every day. The panels from my local board too. I don't want them knowing, like, I'm complaining about somebody else. That's one of the things we do here at the state level a lot. So anytime that we pull a panel, so for instance, it comes out of your board, we will not pull panel members from your board. So if you have a complaint that gets filed against somebody in your board, nobody on that panel will be from your local board. And that's how we try to keep it, because we don't want to mix up the local stuff. And then in terms of the smaller, more informal type complaints, NAR does require us to have an ombudsman program. And so we have an ombudsman program. Amanda's right. This year, there's been a real uptick and inquiries about complaints. There's been an uptick in complaints filed. There's been an uptick in arbitrations filed. Everything's kind of went up this year. And I liked actually our ombudsman. We went from having maybe 2 or 3 a year. I think this year we got like 20 or something like that. And so those are the informal kind of things. Hey, I don't want to really file an ethics complaint, or maybe it's a member of the public saying, hey, I've got an issue with my realtor. We hook them up with one of our ombudsman committee members, which is also, they're also on our mediation committee. And they just reach out to the parties via phone, and they talk to each side. They try to resolve it. Sometimes it's resolved, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it ends up going to an ethics complaint. But I think out of like the 20 we've had this year, I think maybe only one of them has actually ended up filing an ethics complaint. The other ones have been resolved. And so that's a really nice thing that we are able to offer here too, just because we have a lot more people involved in the process. It's usually a very quick process. That if that's the route we go, that kind of thing is usually resolved within 2 or 3 days. And it's just done, if not the same day, if possible. And in terms of like the ethics complaints and everything, we follow the NAR guidelines for timeframes and that sort of stuff. And so we have grievance scheduled once a month. They meet and they hear all the cases that have come in the previous 30 days. And then, working with all the timeframes and everything like that, everybody gets that 20-day response and everything of that nature. We usually have a hearing scheduled within 35, 45 days after grievance has met, if it's going on to a hearing. So we try to resolve them fairly quickly as well.
Does anybody else have any questions for Robert?
Robert, if a complaint is filed from agents within FCBR and we switch to the state grievance, does that relieve the association of any legal pitfalls or perils there?
Right. So you guys wouldn't even take in the complaint. So if you had like Amanda, somebody came into her office and said, hey, I want to file a complaint against somebody in your local board. We have a little thing we send all the AEs. They have, we call it our potential ethics complaint email. It has just like the standard language, has the links to everything on our page, has the forms to fill out. She would just direct them straight to us. There'd be nothing that you guys would do. So in terms of legal pitfalls or liability or whatever on your guys' board, it doesn't ever touch your hands. And then frankly, the only time you even ever know as a local board, unless they've already come to you and said, hey, I'm going to file, is if we schedule something at your local board office. Cause like I said, we try to have the hearings in the local board locale. So if you have room for a hearing, we'll schedule it there. Otherwise we'll do it at a hotel, library, some kind of meeting room or whatever. And then if there is a violation found that results in some sort of membership benefit being suspended or withdrawn or something of that nature, then your AE is put on notice of that if they have to withdraw those services or suspend those services. But yeah, essentially, if you guys move over to the state process, you just don't ever really touch any of it, any part of it. We just handle it all here. We take it out of your hands.
And Robert, from my understanding, majority of Missouri is through the state, correct?
Right. So right now, the only boards that are not would be you guys, Southern Gateway, which we've already actually had a meeting with them. They're talking about switching over as well. So it's you guys, Southern Gateway, St. Charles, St. Louis, and KCRER. And so KCRER in St. Louis, for instance, they have a dedicated staff person. It's not their AE. So like in St. Louis, it's not Dan who's doing it. It's not Kip over in KCRER. In KCRER, there's Debbie Strange. And then at St. Louis, it's Melanie Galler right now. It used to be Tracy Yost. Many of you probably know her. So they handle those things. That's their job. And they're a bigger board. They have, I think actually the last I talked to Tracy a year or so ago, the number of complaints and things that they had filed was actually about the same as what we had in the entire state, just in the St. Louis area. So, but that's why they have dedicated staff to do it. They're able to handle it. There's been talk of them coming on at certain points throughout the years, but they're big enough they can sustain it. So.
See, and to me, what you just said solidifies it. If St. Louis has the same amount as the entire state, and we buddy up with St. Louis and we're back to back with them, and the more St. Louis people that are coming out to Franklin County and beyond, I just feel like the increase is going to be there.
Sure.
The increase in complaints.
Yes.
I agree. I think the increase in complaints also has to do with the public not being able to get what they want, which is a house. And in the market, if the supply and demand is off, the supply is low, the consumer might naturally want to complain against their agent, even though their agent was at no fault, but they could not get their client the house because of the supply and demand issue. So that's why the complaints will probably continue to rise.
Well, that's a valid point, but also what we've been seeing and what I've been reading, there's agents out there that are putting the transaction before themselves, the paycheck before themselves, because the market is so crazy and with and giving improper advice and forgetting their fiduciary responsibility. So if you
Well,
read,
yeah.
if you read locally and nationally, there's more and more cases coming out where that is the case. It's gonna
Yeah,
it's-
well,
it's not-
that's what I mean. The complaints can be legitimate.
well, I mean, by the time they get to the grievance process, they should have gone broker to broker, or at least through well, what does Ralph do? He's the mediator, and we use SLAR's ombudsman program. I think we have an agreement with them to do
We do.
that. So,
Okay, good.
Robert, I know that Stephen had asked earlier about, I guess, FCBR's liability above and beyond that $13, and you may have already answered this question. Are there any other financial liabilities to FCBR if a grievance complaint is brought to the state or resolved at the state? Is there anything else that we would be responsible for?
No, all costs are taken on by us. So that $13, you know, you may not get a complaint filed within a year or two. You may get, 18 filed a year. It's always going to be that same amount. We're not going to charge you extra for, more or less for less. And that fee, goes to cover, we have our panelists. Some of them have to come from out of town. So sometimes there's hotel stays, there's mileage. Sometimes there may be renting a conference room. There may also be, mileage and hotel stays for Steve or myself, that sort of thing. It pays for any technology. So yeah, the $13 is the $13. There's no other extra fees or anything like that. Like I said, you could have 20 complaints. We took GSBOR on Springfield on a while ago, or I think it was probably 3-4 years ago, something like that. And they warned us when we took them on, there was a guy who liked to file complaints, and he filed roughly 15, 20 a year. We didn't change the price for them. I mean, we just kind of took it in stride, and he didn't have as much luck filing them with us as he did the local board. I think he got tired of dealing with us, so it dropped substantially. But they were some of those really petty ones, and we just kept referring them to ombudsman. And I think he just liked to show up at hearings. So that's what. But yeah, it doesn't matter. The money is the same across the board.
Okay. No, thank you for answering that. And just like you said too, and not that I think that anyone that certainly not on this call or anyone we work with on a daily basis is going to make any kind of frivolous claims. We hope not. But yeah, maybe that will really stop that once they see there is an extra layer. Not that Amanda's not a great gatekeeper. She is. She'll stop it. But
I'm not a lawyer. Just keep that in mind.
we're not attorneys. That's right.
No, all of our
Thank you
AEs
for
are
answering
great
that.
gatekeepers. So I mean, the AEs do a lot, even on the statewide process in terms of they're the ones that get the initial calls. I mean, very rarely is somebody calling us. So normally, directly, we do get it occasionally, but a lot of times they reach out locally first. And then that's when, if you're on the statewide process, Amanda says, hey, you know what? Here's a phone number you can call. You can call Robert or Kim or Steve, or, here's a website you can go to and download this stuff and fill it out and send it in without ever even having to talk to anybody. And she gets to wash her hands of it instead of having that 45-minute conversation with somebody who wants to complain. So.
Robert, it's because it sounds like the $13 per member of associations is kind of I guess, payment by volume. So if it was to increase, it would increase on every association participating, not just, say, Franklin County.
Right. I believe that's the case, but I can tell you, at least in the 6 years I've been here, it's never went up. So, I mean, I just don't think, in terms of the program itself or whatever, and the costs, I mean, most of the costs don't really change all that much. And so, in part, I think if it does go above what we get from local boards, the state kind of ends up subsidizing those costs. So I'm not going to say it's never going to go up ever, but I can tell you in the last 6 years it hasn't, and I don't see it going up for any reason in the future.
But if it would, it'd be across all associations. Not
Correct. It would, which also helps to minimize what the cost would be going up. I mean, so if we were only talking about going to one or two boards, we'd end up having to, raise it a substantial amount. Whereas if we were going across all the boards, it'd be, like 50 cents or something for everybody to make up the additional cost. But like I said, I don't see it going up. It hasn't in the last 6 years, and I don't know anything about it prior to that, but I can at least speak to that.
Anybody else? Leaker, I saw you just hopped on. Do you have any questions for Robert?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, Robert, can you think of anything else that anybody else has already asked? I don't know.
No, I tried to hit on most of the general questions. I mean, and if you guys have any other things from like membership or anything like that, or if you have any other ones that you think about, because I know it's hard to be put on the spot or whatever, feel free to shoot us an email, give us a phone call. We'll answer whatever. There's no hiding the ball or anything like that. I mean, we'll give you whatever we got and give you a straight answer. So you can call Steve or myself, email either one of us, and we'll help you out. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to meet with us this morning. I really appreciate it. I feel like you answered a lot of questions and gave us a great overview.
Sure, no problem, no problem. And we'll see some of you at the conference next week. That's one of the things we're working on right now.
All right,
Awesome.
there.
Even I are teaching a class. Maybe I'll sign up for that.
Nice
Shameless
plug.
Shameless plug. I'm shameless. All right, thanks, guys.
All right,
Thank
Robert,
you.
thanks. So there's not a quorum